Doing the conservation of matter lab today. Before we can do anything, we have to get our safety equipment on. Now that I've got my safety equipment on, we can get started. And before we start measuring, before we start doing anything, we want to make sure that we have all of our materials. Here are the materials that I need. So for part one, I need some sodium chloride. I need some distilled water. I need a balance. And I need a 50 milliliter beaker and weigh boats. For part two, I need 1 molar of calcium chloride. I need a 1 molar solution of sodium carbonate. And I need two 50 milliliter beakers. For part three, I need 1 molar sodium carbonate. I need a 1 molar solution of acetic acid. And I need two 50 milliliter beakers. Along on your worksheet, we're going to start here with part one, where it says put approximately 1 gram of sodium chloride into 20 milliliters of water. So here I'm going to grab a weigh boat, put it on my scale. Make sure when we do this, we have to tare. And now I'm going to put 1 gram of sodium chloride onto my balance. Now I have exactly 1 gram of sodium chloride on my balance. Now I go back to my data table. Here's my NaCl, chemical name is sodium chloride. What does it look like? It looks like, you guys know what salt looks like. It's a little white crystal. Mass before mixing, well, this is exactly 1.00 grams. I need to measure out 20 milliliters of water. So I have my graduated cylinder. I'm going to put that onto my balance. I'm going to tare this so that I only get the mass of the water. Now remember, we never ever pour while it's sitting on the balance, so I'm going to take it off and I'm going to fill that up with 20 milliliters of water. 20 milliliters of water, and that weighs 19.89 grams. So I'm going to write that over here on my data table. 19.89 grams for the water, 1.00 grams for my sodium chloride. Add those together and you'll get a total. Now I'm going to mix them together. My water and pour it into my beaker. And my sodium chloride into the beaker. Mix that up. All right, so now that we've got it mixed up, I'm going to put it on we're going to make an observation, see what it looks like. All of the salt has dissolved. And then I'm going to put it onto my scale. So we come over here, our chemical name, this is aqueous sodium chloride or sodium chloride solution. Description, what does it look like? Make an observation. Total mass after mixing, we come over here, 20.87. So that's what we're going to write here, 20.87. And that's part one. For part two, I need my calcium chloride solution and my sodium carbonate solution. I need 20 milliliters of each. I'm going to put those into my two different beakers and weigh them. So first thing I need to make sure is I have my beaker on here. I need to make sure I hit tare. So that goes down to 0. And now I can weigh out my calcium chloride solution. Chloride solution, about 20 milliliters. So let's go ahead and make an observation. What does it look like? Here's my calcium chloride solution. So what does it look like? Let's put it on the scale. So 20 milliliters of calcium chloride weighs 20.64 grams. So we'll come over here. Here's my CaCl2, that's my calcium chloride. Description, make an observation. Mass before mixing for the calcium chloride is 20.64 grams. I'm going to do the same thing for my sodium carbonate. Put my beaker on the balance, tare it, and then measure out about 20 milliliters. Okay, here is my sodium carbonate, about 20 milliliters of that. So let's go ahead and make some observations. What does it look like? How is it similar? How is it different from the calcium chloride that we just weighed out? Okay, now that we've got some observations, I'm going to put it on my scale, and that weighs 18.74 grams. So over here for my sodium carbonate, that's my chemical name, sodium carbonate. Description, what does it look like? Mass before mixing, this one is 18.74 grams. So we'll write that in here, add those two up, and get a total. Tricky where we're going to mix these two together. Here is my calcium chloride from before. Here's my sodium carbonate that I just weighed. Now, since this beaker, this is the one that I've used, is tiered on this scale, this is the one that I'm going to mix it in. I'm going to take my calcium chloride and put it in here with the sodium carbonate. But again, I'm not going to mix on the scale. Okay, so I've mixed those together, mix those up. Okay, and what can we see? How does this look different than what we just did? So we have our two chemical names. This is calcium carbonate. It's a solid. Sodium chloride, aqueous, is our name here. Description, what does this look like? What does this one look like? Total mass after mixing, I'm going to take this and put it back on the scale. And I'm at 39.23 grams after we've mixed them together. So I'm going to come over here. 39.23 is what I write here, and compare our mass after with our mass before. Okay, moving on to part 3. I have my sodium carbonate solution, my acetic acid solution, my two beakers that I'm going to use to weigh them. So I'm going to start with my acetic acid. So I'm going to put this onto my scale. I'm going to tare this until it goes to 0. Then I'm going to take my acetic acid and pour it into my beaker. Acetic acid is the major ingredient in vinegar, so this one this smells quite strong, very strong vinegar smell. So let's make an observation. What does it look like? Okay, and we're going to write that over here. This one here, this is acetic acid. Okay, what does it look like? It smells very strong like vinegar. Take my word for it. And then total mass before mixing, let's weigh this. This is 19.20 grams for my acetic acid. So we'll want to make sure we write that down here. And now I'll go ahead and weigh out my beaker for my sodium carbonate. Tare that, and I'll pour in about 20 milliliters of sodium carbonate. Our observations, so that's going to be our chemical name here. Observations are going to be the same as they were before because we used this in part 2. So make some observations about what it looks like. This one does not smell. I can still smell the vinegar. That one still smells. All right, and now we'll go ahead and weigh this. So this is 17.46 grams. So we'll write that up here, 17.46. And now we'll go ahead and mix them together. Now, because I know what's going to happen, I'm going to mix them and very quickly put them back onto the scale. And again, because this is the beaker that's tared on this scale, this is the one I'm going to mix in. So hopefully you saw that. You can still see what's happening in there. evidence of a chemical reaction. And we'll let that go for a minute or two. And then we'll look at what the mass is. You can already see, here's our mass, 36.45. I'm gonna let this run for a couple minutes and then we'll recheck it. So we've let this sit for a little bit. Doesn't look like there's any more reaction happening. And here is our mass, 36.41. So we're gonna write that down here. Total mass after mixing is 36.41 grams. Okay, you should have all the data that you need in order to answer the questions for the lab. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know. See you guys.